I call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Any changes to the agenda at this point? All right. Thank you. So we have an action item that we're starting with tonight. The unassigned fund balance retention.
Okay, the agenda has some items that were posted that pertain to the current balance that the unassigned fund has, which includes $437,000 from our retained funds from last year, which we retained for an emergency, and an additional $906,798 in unspent unassigned funds. So it's a total of $1.343905 million in the unassigned fund. What we're going to do is we're going to retain 5% of that, which is $884,038, which the remainder, the numbers here, and the remainder, which is $499,867, will go back to taxpayers. In addition, because our budget was based on 2020 attendance numbers, and the state budget has made provision for using either our 2020 ADM or our previous ADM, whichever is greater, in terms of providing adequacy aid. So when they provided us with the increased adequacy aid, we had two choices. One is to hold another town meeting and adopt the funds into the budget. In other words, basically increasing the budget by the amount of the adequacy aid. Or option two was do nothing, and if we did nothing, the money would return to taxpayers, would go to DRA to offset the taxes. And the amount of that was $847,947.91. So if we add that 847 in adequacy aid, plus the 499 in unretained funds, assigned general funds going back to the taxpayers, okay, we will be retaining 884,000, and 1,347,814 goes back to taxpayers. So what we've done basically is we said, okay, we've got a 1.3 surplus. We're going to retain 884 of that, but in its place, what we're going to do is we're going to take the remaining 499 plus the 847,000 in adequacy aid and return that to taxpayers. So the net of the whole thing is that taxpayers get $1,347,814.91, and we're going to retain $884,038 in our emergency fund. So we'll have, and the reason we're doing that, by the way, is we've run into some issues already with paving, with flooding, with all kinds of things, which is going to require some expenses that were not in the budget. So we need to retain what we can for emergencies. And we'll see tonight that we know right now that there's at least $410,000 of that $884 that we're going to need to spend. So that's the explanation of why we want to retain the full 884,038.
Carrie has some.
Carrie, yes, sorry.
I just wanted to make sure I'm not sure. Copyright. I just want to make sure. I'm sorry if I'm down. If the school board retains the 1838, plus the additional hours.
Okay, 459.
The 459.
So that, does that change the math?
Changes the math.
So that brings it to 1307.
13.
Is that correct?
Yeah, difference of 40.
Okay, so the amount that goes back to taxpayers is 1,307,814.91 cents.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for that explanation at this point?
I'll just make a comment that I think it's a very good solution. And on top of that, we're addressing some water problems that many places are experiencing this year with the heavy rainfall we've had, and the parking lots look great. So it's a pretty good outcome.
Okay. So in order to take that action, we need a motion.
I can make that motion.
Okay.
I'd like to move that the Jackson Road School Board authorizes the retention of 884,038 as of June 30th. The general fund unassigned fund balance for the purpose of having funds on hand to use as revenue source for unanticipated expenditures or to be used as a revenue source to reduce the tax rate, all in accordance with RSA 198(4)(b).
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Funds are looking at revenue source for expenditures.
Okay, I'll cross that out.
Sorry.
I might be.
Okay. Okay.
You want me to say it again with that? Or can you just-
Nick, do you have the revised language?
Yep.
Yes, okay. Okay, I think we're good then. All right, did I get a second? John,
Second.
thank you. All right, and all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? 700. Great. Well, we have 3 minutes before we need to go into public hearing. And we can't go in early. We have to start at 7.
Should I talk slower?
2 minutes. Maybe you should reread it. Seventh inning stretch. I don't- Not enough time to do anything. So how's everyone doing?
It's not raining.
It's not raining now.
Congratulations to the boys varsity soccer team for winning their first game against Monadnock on Friday, 5-0. And they have 2 home games Tuesday and Thursday this week at 4 o'clock at the stadium.
All right.
Wow.
Yay.
I'm happy for it. And new uniform. Oh, they're snazzy. Very snazzy.
Nice.
That's what they want.
That's it. It's the uniform.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, 1 more minute.
Yeah, that group has worked hard over the years,
We have.
last couple.
And track has given them a run for their money. Cross country is going to be
Mhm.
very good this year.
We've been running outside that office for weeks. It's going.
Girls soccer tied, went into overtime on Friday. So
They too, very competitive.
It's 7 o'clock. All right, so we're now going to go into public hearing. We have two things. We actually have two items that we're going to be doing well in public hearing. The first one is to do with the unassigned fund balance retention that we just voted on. And then the other is about some what would be considered unanticipated income, which is the ESSER 3 phases 1 and 2. So the first one is the unassigned fund balance retention.
Okay, we just took and reserved $884,038 in the unassigned fund budget, or the unassigned general fund. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to authorize expenditure from that. And in order to do that, because it's from our retained funds, we need to have a public hearing, and we need to get public comment on what our intentions are. All right? So our intentions are to spend, I shouldn't say spend, to allocate $410,000 of that $884,338 to cover additional work orders relative to the parking lot paving. We ran into some real issues in that area. I'll let the superintendent describe what those are. But basically, that's what we're going to try to do tonight.
Okay. So, board, I don't know at this point if you have any thoughts or comments about the 410 that Charlie's suggesting we put aside or allocate for the parking lot. I mean, we've noted that the parking lot looks great, but is there anything about the finance?
So I think what we should do is we should explain why we did not have this in the budget.
Yeah.
And that would
Why it's
require, explaining what the pavers ran into when they tried to do their paving job.
Yep.
So
Turn it over to you.
So the items that we did not anticipate were several fold, really. Here, the major items, which cost over $300,000, was that the soil, I guess you could say, underneath the gravel, the lack thereof, gravel, underneath half of this parking lot here. So basically, if you were to draw a line at the front of the Pratt and then kind of cut through the school and go all the way over that way to that side of the building as well, it was nothing but clay. And in some cases, actually, it was about 4 inches of some sort of gravel on top of pavement. So there was no way for water to drain anywhere, which makes a lot of sense to how the condition of that parking lot. When the bidders came, the majority of them who bid on it with the type of process that United Construction said that they were going to do. Nothing added and so forth. This was definitely a better, they were the low bid. Honestly, by adding the 300 some odd thousand, it came about, probably around the next bid, maybe the bid after that one. And if we had gone with them, we would have still had the 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 on top of that. So we've dealt with things as they've arisen. It is done properly. We have proper training. We've had to have some drainage basins put in as well in different locations to make sure that everything will drain properly, and so that the work that we did out here that the taxpayers paid for lasts for a long time. If we had not done that, which of course the company said they did not recommend, but would do if, obviously if we didn't have the money, if that was a job, or they could leave it, could have left it, I suppose, just kind of wide open. They indicated that probably in 2 years, it would have started cracking. Over here, we're still having to do some work because though we've dug out everything, we've put more fill in. There's still some drainage that needs to be worked on. So we have about $25,000 to $30,000 more worth more of work just to be able to make sure that is taken care of now prior to putting on the top surface. So that process is going on as we speak this week. That has nothing to do with any of that issue over there, has nothing to do with any of our issues that we've had here with flooding or with the humidity and mold and things of that nature. But that is, again, an area that we want to make sure that in 2 years we don't have all cracked up, as it actually was literally moving when we have had these heavy rains. So that's the majority of the funds there, covering about, plus the individual who we hired to oversee the construction and so forth, for about $20,000. So there were some smaller issues with the Ringe parking lot, not as big. There were some areas where the wires, underneath were not properly marked. Those were cut. We had to get, $5,000 fix here or a $5,000 fix there, but nothing of what we had right here.
So board, giving you opportunity right now, and then we'll go to the public. Okay. So if there are public comments, we'll start with people that are physically present, and then go to.
Thanks, the 2 minutes or anything of that nature. I can put a timer on it.
Please.
Hello, I'm Melissa West and I'm a resident of Ringe. I just have a little something that's been laid on my heart and I wrote and I want to read it to you. Hello, board members. I stand before you tonight because I was utterly disappointed with how his parents were ignored the other board meeting on August 16th.
I have to stop you for a sec, sorry. Is this relating to what we're talking about right now in terms of the
No.
public hearing? Okay, right now this is for comments around the public hearing. And then we'll have comments about the agenda.
It's not really long if you just want me to finish.
Well, we can't do that because it's a public hearing.
Okay,
So once the public
After
hearing's
everything's done?
over, then we can
Okay.
take public comments that has to do with the board meeting.
okay.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So no one physically present has anything for the public hearing? Okay.
We do
Then
have one.
go ahead.
Aaron?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
Erin Chamberlain from Jaffrey. I just have a question about the bids that we had for that parking lot, because Ruben just mentioned that a couple of them were a little bit higher because they included the knowledge that that undersoil and drainage would need to be repaired. So I'm just wondering why we would have gone with the lower bid having that information? Because now that project has seemed like it's been a part of delaying school as well, because that became such a big surprise, yet it was just announced that that really wasn't a surprise. We knew that there was going to be an issue with that underlying drainage system. So what, I couldn't go back and find what the bids were, but were they as similar? I'm thinking that the original bid with that included would have been more cost effective than what we're dealing with now.
I think that isn't what Ruben just said. Ruben just said that the bids, they were doing the same work. And that they were,
None of them included.
none of them included all the
The problems that
drainage
we
and
were-
stuff that we're talking about. They all work to a particular spec of what we were asking for.
So there was a $300,000 difference just asking for paving. I thought Ruben just did say something about how some included the drainage system underneath.
Not that they included it, I said that they didn't either, and that we would have had to have continued to put more money
That's not
into
true.
those. Because
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, no, I just believed that one of the companies that bid on it honestly put that in their bid, that's all. So from previous information, but that's fine. I just was wondering about the difference and how it became such a big project and such a big issue, that's all.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that, what was it? In the 70s, when it was originally put down, it was done on the cheap.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, to my knowledge, no one knew that the substrate needed to be replaced. None of the bidders, obviously, we didn't know it. And I think that the only way they found that out is when they actually started tearing up the old pavement and drilling down to check the substrate before they laid down a new pavement.
Okay. Thank you, Charlie, Ruben. Thank you, Aaron. Are there others?
Nope, that was the only one.
That's the only one?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So
Is that the end of public comment?
I think that's the end of public comments.
Okay, then I would like to make a motion. I'd like to make the motion to withdraw $410,000 from our unassigned general fund for the purpose of completing the paving on CHS, JRMS, and RMS.
Thank you, Charlie. Lisa, you're going to second that? Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right, that carries 700. Thank you very much. And again, it's really nice to have the parking lots in good shape. Okay, so now we're going into public comments. And if you would,
Do we have the second?
oh gosh, you're right. Ah, wishful thinking on my part. Okay, so the second part of the public hearing, it's the American Rescue Plan Act, ESSER 3, Phase 2, 1 and 2 monies. So do you want to talk to those? Just explain in general what that is. And then
yeah, so the ARPA ESSER 3 funds we have in our grant system have been allotted $1,604,444.99. That was indicated that was 2/3 of the amount that Jaffrey Ridge Cooperative School District would be allotted for this specific portion of the fund. So we've had the ESSER 1 funds, which I'll talk about a little bit about how we spent some of that last year. the ESSER two funds, which for the most part we have not spent yet, because we're going to look to see if we could utilize those in tandem with the ESSER three funds, or at least a portion of them that we would be allowed to anyway. And then, so tonight, basically, the board accepting the federal funds in the amount of about 2.4 million. It's a little bit more than that. I believe you have the exact number that you have, which is
I didn't add them together.
I have 2,410,889 and 3 cents, but it might be within 20,000 either way of that. But that's the idea. So a little over 2.4 million. Those funds are allowed to be used for new construction or to fix certain portions of facilities that have to do with health and wellness, air systems, things of that nature. It's 20% of it has to be used for the purpose of supporting learners with remediation or extra support based upon some sort of criteria. And then some of it, there's an allotment for some CTE or ATC funds. Between 3 and 5% of that has to be utilized. And so as to what it would be used for, we've already had a lot of conversations with the board, and though we haven't signed a contract yet, what the idea of completely redoing the HVAC systems over at the Ringe Memorial School, as well as the Jaffrey Grade School. We'd have funds enough in here. Granted, if you have a project going on that is using federal funds, you pay different wages and so forth. There are a lot of criteria, a lot of hoops you have to jump through. We spent all summer long making sure that all our paperwork and ducks were in a row, and we're in process of going back and forth with contracts right now, making sure it says what it needs to say, so that we can go and do the work this coming year. But there's also over $500,000 that is, we haven't discussed, and to be able to utilize and spend those funds, I have recently, and also to receive the next $800,000, I had to send in a document to the Department of Education for review to comply with federal guidelines, and also discuss how we would go about collecting information from people as to what they believe we should spend money on. So we'll be doing some surveys specifically for teachers. I have a monthly meeting with the Teacher Association, and we'll discuss together how that conversation will take place amongst the teachers, and how that survey will be developed. So we'll be surveying our families, people in the community, other stakeholders, to see what they think some of the money should be utilized for. Some of it, once again, you have buckets of what you're allowed to use it for. So it's not like we can just spend it on anything we want to.
Okay. So we need to approve the acceptance of this, right?
Was that?
We need to accept this.
Yeah, but we need board discussion, public discussion.
Right. So, starting with the board, if anyone has any discussion on this?
I'll just say it's great that we have this option, and that the work that's anticipated will be great for the schools. And
Yeah.
Great.
Sorry, John. What is the timeline on when we need to spend these funds?
Oh, I think it's moved, but I know that we need to at least spend them. I know that we at least have till 2023, September of 2023, but I think that it may have been pushed forward even more, or back more. But we'll find out, but 2023 for certain.
I would say I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of creative ways some of this from the surveys, and what within what is allowed, but looking forward to that. So again, this is a public hearing, so it's about the receiving of the ESSER grant. And if there's physically present who would like to comment on that? How about remotely? No? Okay, no comments. So
it's time for a motion then?
I think it's time for a motion, yeah?
So I would like to make a motion that we accept the ESSER 3 Phase 1 and 2 funds. Final amount to be determined, but approximately $2.4 million.
Great. Thank you, John. I need a second.
I'll second.
Got 2 seconds. I saw your hand. I'll take it, Christine. And all those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all those opposed, abstain, and that carries 700. Okay. Now I can close public hearing, correct? All right. Then I'll consider public hearing closed. And we're now up to public comments. So Nick, if you would, please.
Yeah, of course. So again, kind of similar to our public comment process. Since we have both a physical and a digital audience, we'll take those in person first, and then we'll take the digital folks. Folks in the audience, you can use the podium with microphone. People who are in attendance digitally, you can use the hands raised feature through Zoom. Again, first name, last name, town of residence. We do have the policy relative to public comments on the screen. So if you could just give that a read before you make a public comment. And if I didn't say this already, before you make the comment, identify yourself with your first name, last name, and your town of residence.
So starting with those physically present.
Hello again, Alyssa West from Ringe. I'm just coming here because I was disappointed at the last board meeting. I felt like what our surveys had, we weren't heard. I know we're starting without masks, but I feel like strongly that it should be up to each parent. If people want to wear masks, fine. But if the parent doesn't want them to, I think we should have that option too. Because they're my children, not the schools or the school boards. And as our governor said, it is important to be back in normal atmosphere so kids, especially young kids, can see their teacher's mouth, can interact in the right way. Don't feel restrictions or under any constraints of wearing a mask for 8 hours a day, he said. And I just wanted to share that some of my kids have suffered with a lot of anxiety because of the mask wearing and not being able to hug their teacher or just see their smile. It's been a real struggle for them, and some of them more than others. Some have done fabulous, but I just feel like, especially now having a kid going in kindergarten, for teachers saying words and stuff, they use a lot of their mouth to show kids how to sound it out or how to say letters. And that's going to be a struggle for a lot of the kindergarteners. And I know because the first time when we had to go remote, I had a kindergartner and she really struggled. And she has through first grade and now going into second grade. She just has a lot of anxiety about going back to school, and it shouldn't be like that. It should be a place where they want to go have fun and want to learn. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your input.
Hello, I'm Calvin Rainey, resident of Ringe. I have 2 children in Ringe Memorial, or so enrolled. A couple thoughts on, because I came to the last meeting. Some people were, a little bit disappointed about not having the remote option available. That didn't really work for my son. As it went, things went remote, And that just was, yeah, not going to work for him. He just too distracted. So I'm not disappointed that that's just closed out as an option. And then last year we did homeschool, and that went good. But now coming into this year, as of like June, it was pretty well understood that there wouldn't be masks. But now as it's coming around, it looks like they'll be wearing a lot of masks. So I'm just hoping that when the we'll say masks are optional times come, that the kids understand this, that wear it if you want. And that it's not pushed on them so hard that, because I really think that it's more of a political thing at this point. We've had COVID in the house twice. I had it, and then my wife had it at different times, and the kids are totally unaffected. The numbers don't support the masks. So, you know, I understand that you're trying to like work for the whole community, but as far as having an outbreak among kids and the kids being affected by it, I don't think it's really much risk any more so than the flu, at least from what I've seen in my immediate situational awareness. So that's all. I guess as the year goes through, just consider a lot of us families that don't really want our kids in masks.
Thanks for your input, Mr. Rainey.
Hey, everybody. My name is Kevin Avard. I'm state senator for District 12, which is Ringe, and Alyssa is the one who invited me up here. Just going to be brief real quickly. We're getting a lot of requests from constituents across the board to take away the local control because of the mask issue. And I really believe in local control, but they're really clamoring for the state to step in and say, look, let it be optional. And I just wanted to make you aware of that. And I came to listen to what people are saying here up in this district. Obviously, I have Greenville, Mason, New Ipswich, Nashua, Hollis, Brookline. So I wanted to hear what's going on up here, but I am getting a lot of emails, and so are a lot of my colleagues, and people are they're very vocal about it. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I don't know if you're getting the same ones we are, but a lot of people want the state to step in and take away the local control that you have. So I just wanted to let you know, to be aware. And obviously Alyssa asked me to come up here, so I just wanted to be here for my constituent. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we can take one more that's, yes, go ahead, physically, and then I will need to share the time with remotes.
I'm Jana Sepola from Ringe, New Hampshire, obviously. Anyway, I was just wondering why there isn't a waiver for the mask wearing when there's a waiver for taking photos of your kids at school. There's a waiver for unvaccinated kids to go to school. You sign a waiver for a lot of things, but there's no waivers for that. And I'm not comfortable sending my kids to school. So I have 3 kids I was planning to send this year, and I'm going to end up homeschooling just because I feel like that's not, I feel like I don't have an option whether I want to send them in masks. So I'm going to homeschool. Thanks.
Thank you. So do we have some that want to raise their hand?
I saw one person at one point that put their hand up and then put it down. So I don't know if we either lost them or that they decided not to make public comment.
Okay, okay, but there's no one right now.
No, there's nobody right now.
All right, then back to public people present. Is there anyone else who wants to speak? Okay, oh, you are? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ashley Sepla. I'm from Ridge. And it's just, I wanted to come here and talk to you guys because I'm really disappointed with the school. I really love Ridge Memorial. My kids love it. The teachers are great, but my kids are petrified to go back to school because they're so scared of wearing masks. They get really, really bad anxiety and like stuff like that. And you know, when they're forced to wear masks, that makes a lot of that worse. And then I also agree with Alyssa that now I just lost it. I do feel like I forget what I was going to say about that, but I think it should be a choice for the parents because we only have our kids' best interest at heart. And I think that it should be a choice. Like if someone wants to send their children to school in a mask, they have that choice. And if there's people who want to send their children with no mask, they should also have that choice. Yeah, that's it. Sorry. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, we do have one person.
Yep, okay.
All right, Carrie?
Hello.
Hi.
I believe last time there was no discussion or I missed the discussion.
Could we get your name and town of residence first, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Carrie Sush. I'm in Ringe. Last time I think I missed or there was no discussion about requirement for COVID testing in order for kids to return to school after they've been sick. Is that going to be in place this year?
Yeah, we're following the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services guidelines. So it's a little bit different than last year in that contact tracing. So the individuals who are in close contact, that's not going to be happening. But if an individual has symptoms, the nurses are going to follow that process of asking them to be tested. Certainly, if they get tested, the difference is, as it was kind of toward the end of the year, that if they test not to have COVID, then as long as they don't have a fever, and they can come right back the next day. Otherwise, if you're not going to be tested, it's a 10-day waiting period. So it's a matrix that the state has set up that we are using. A little bit looser than last year from the standpoint of how many people would be sent home in a given situation, and also with the ability to come back faster if the tests show to be negative. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's the only person we had.
Okay, then. All right. Thank you very much. And we'll on to the superintendent's report.
All right, so it's been an eventful couple of weeks. So we'll touch base with a lot of things that are happening. One, we'll look at some of the COVID-19 data in our area. That's something that we do now every single time we meet. I was asked to go and look at some remote learning concepts, or at least to be able to answer some of the questions so that it made sense, that we were providing logical rationale for any decisions that we were making as it regards to remote learning. And then some facilities updates. I also have a brief update of something that a project that we've been working on for digital online registration. That's very new this year, so we're excited about some of the work that's happening there. Can't say it's happening perfectly, but we're in an okay spot. So the first slide here, these first two slides are going to look very similar to the ones I provided last time. The dates have changed. So still, you'll see that we follow the cases as they approach closer to what they were in the April-May timeframe when they were at that kind of second or third peak, not during the November and January timeframe when it was at its highest over here in New Hampshire. The green bar there is represents vaccinations, the number of individuals who are vaccinated. Well, again, you saw that it had an exponential growth, and then it's started to plateau, still going up a little bit, and that's true also in our communities a little bit. I'll show that slide in just a second. And then the state over there, that red state, that is currently where the transmission across the state is currently at. So locally, if you look at the 14 days, and then in parentheses, I have the currently active cases. So in 14 days, Jaffrey has had 14 positive cases, Ringe 22. That's a fair hike from the last time that we met, but still not as high as it was in the springtime. 9 of those 14 are current, so that means that 5 have, as of perhaps this weekend, have dropped off. And the same thing with Ringe in the last 14 days. It was at a height of or an average of 22, and now is at actually 15. Vaccination percentages went up 0.2% in Jaffrey since the last time we met, and 0.1% in Ringe. So it's just a few more individuals, not a significant increase, but just to keep people aware of that information as we make any decisions that we have. So current level on the matrix that was adopted last time is that the level of community transmission, which we have decided at this point in time to use as a county. As an aside, I was asked in several emails and from people, I think even in the last meeting that we had, to only focus on the local. What I tried to share in my email later on was that the math act, it's not the number of cases, it's the ratio of cases per 100,000. And so we actually are either right now equal with the county or a little bit above. Last time we were definitely a good portion above. Keene has increased significantly in the last couple of weeks, I think, so it could have balanced out a little bit more. So as of right now, we don't have learners absent due to illness, so we are going to assume that that number is low and within that 10% category. And so we would look at that masking recommended, social distancing required indoors. And so it goes from masking optional, no social distancing indoors. This is all about indoor information. Yellow being masking recommended. I'll discuss what recommended means again. And then social distancing is required. Now, social distancing required this year is different than what social distancing required last year was. Last year, we had an entire year where social distancing was 6 feet. We have moved that to 3 feet. A lot of the data out there from other countries suggests that 3 feet was perfectly, or 1 meter was perfectly okay for this purpose. Of course, with anything, you want people to wash their hands. If they're not wearing a mask, sneeze in their sleeve or something, all those things, just good hygiene is really important, and perhaps, maybe even the most important. But being apart from someone, just having conversations, it's important to make sure that those droplets are not going into the other person's facial region. So the masking recommended, what does that mean? Recommended means that we're all wearing masks right now. So if I'm recommending, or if we as a school board have adopted this, that means that we need to follow that. That does not mean that everyone has to. So we have individuals who will choose not to wear masks during this time frame, and other people who will choose to wear masks. We'll have adults who will, and we'll have learners who will do that as well. The 3 feet of social distancing as a classroom is set up is a non-negotiable during the yellow phase. So there are times, because I think it was even stated earlier with maybe a quote or a comment, that being in person is really important. It is the complete foundation of the entire reopening framework, which is to make sure that as many people could be in person as possible because of the difference that it is in comparison to remote learning for most individuals anyway. And so we wanted to make a matrix that was going to get as many individuals back into our schools as possible and to keep them there. Illness is an area that does keep people out of school. So that's why we have the matrix that is set up to talk about illness and not just COVID. If we were talking just COVID, we probably would change our percentages and so forth as well. But we're looking at just making sure that people are healthy and present. Lots of reasons for that. Obviously, just but learning is the most important thing. There are times also when recommended, if you cannot social distance, then masks would be required to be worn. An example of that is, first of all, any of our learners who go over to Conval, because Conval is requiring masks at all times, they have to abide by their rules over there. So if they don't wear a mask here, they will need to wear a mask while over there. There will be no debate about that. In a class like building trades, which we call it, well, it's construction trades, it's been shifted, very exciting. Enormous number of people taking that course this year from Conval and from here, and maybe one from Scenic with the new curriculum and so forth. That is a very hands-on, group-oriented, in-your-face type of class that will be happening a lot. Certainly some of it can be done outside. So if it's outside, no masks, no social distancing, anything of that matters anyway. Anything inside a closed area like that where they're going to be working, they will almost always wear masks. Plus half the kids are from Conval, they'll be required, talking to that superintendent, to wear masks anyway. So there are some that when you're close like that, and you have the ability that as you're speaking, whether it be spit or just in general droplets coming out of your mouth, that's the idea of catching droplets is a mask. So the only other time in this yellow category, and actually it doesn't matter if it's green, yellow, or red right now, we don't have an option. I did the research on the CDC, whether they had the authority to mandate masks on public transportation. They don't, as just usual, you know, the CDC, but it had been given to them. The authority was given to them. It is in law for the time being that on any public transportation, which does include school buses, and I know that other areas have had to change this, even though they went a different direction at first. It is required to wear masks on getting on the bus, and coming off the bus. That's true for athletic events as well. So those, once again, just abiding by the law there. Masking requirement would occur again if we had substantial absentee due to illness. We had a lot of conversations about that. There are debates on all different sides about this. There are people who are disappointed that we would have this because of masking possibly being a requirement at some point in time. There are others who, and I know you've seen the emails and so forth of the opposite, saying that we should be and asking to be sent to other schools because masking is not required. So it's we're in that middle zone. I anticipate that we'll be in that middle zone for a large portion of the year. Certainly, if we do have some sort of outbreak in some kind, we do want to make sure that, again, we're keeping kids in school. Learning is important. We're keeping them safe. And so if you get to that, what we have determined or what the group presented to the board as a substantial area, and 20%, you know, 1/5, 1 out of every 5 kids is absent due to illness. That's a time to certainly be taking another step in some capacity. But again, to start off school, if there's an individual in this room, for instance, who is sending a child and you do not want to have your child wear a mask going into school, that mask is not required to at this point in time. It is recommended. Yeah. Yes.
Just to be clear, on that matrix,
yeah,
if you're green and yellow, it's choice. The
That's
only
correct.
time it's not choice is red.
The only time is not choice during the yellow is if it is impossible to socially distance.
Okay, so that would mean if you have.
When inside, yes. Outdoors, it's never addressed here anyway. It's
Okay,
just
so-
following the guidance of the.
So we're starting school in choice, and we're gonna stay in choice until we get to red.
Mhm.
When we get to red, it says 20% of our kids are out sick. That's over 270 kids, is that correct?
The entire population?
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're gonna have 270 kids out sick before we go to red. Doesn't say anything about staff, but I'm assuming that since the staff is vaccinated.
Well, this would, first of all, this would be by school. So for instance, if Ringe stayed healthy the entire time and was underneath that, they would never wear masks. If the middle school, high school, for instance, which has a larger number of individuals and very likely a higher transmission rate, having, larger people at the high school anyway. There's we're climbing, our numbers are climbing fairly high right now, even today. So we might be around 750 right now. So 20% of that is around, 150. That's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Yep.
So is there, in my mind, there's a differentiation between students that are out for quarantine purposes, but are not ill, right? So this- right.
Quarantine is not out due to illness.
Right, so that's a very, needing to be clear. And if the sooner someone who has symptoms gets a test and the kid tests negative and gets back in the school, that number, it's to our advantage if to stay in
It's
an
to
optional.
everyone's advantage.
Right,
Yes.
right. So not getting tested is not going to be helpful. I guess, right? Is that what I'm
It would
hearing?
not, it would not be helpful, but I understand the inconvenience of that.
Right, no, I'm
For
just
certain,
saying, the sooner they're back.
Having been gone through my own testing,
Right.
several times, not fun.
But that is, there are strategies, right?
There are strategies, absolutely. One strategy, and we've had difficulty in the past, which is where this 20% number came from. We have had schools, usually elementary schools, not usually secondary, who have hit that number and gone way beyond that. And when learners come off the bus and they go directly to the nurse because ibuprofen has worn off or Tylenol has worn off, whatever, and they have a fever, things spread very quickly when everyone's together and they're running around and doing that stuff. So if someone does have a fever, absolutely. I heard an individual last time, and I know it said this, of course we would do it. It's not an of course, really. People send, and I get it, right? It's difficult. You got to go to work, things of that nature, but that will impact. If we have someone sending, students with strep throat, strep is another one that has gone quite a bit through in some of the schools in the past. And it travels quickly, by the way. Same way, droplets, things of that nature. Keeping them home, it's uncomfortable. It's an inconvenience. Absolutely. And we want them here, but definitely staying home is going to keep those percentages lower. So if you think, absence due to illness, is actually better to keep your child home when they're ill and send them back when they're not ill, because at least then there's not a spread, a likelihood, anyway, a reduced likelihood of spreading to have more people have to, be out of school.
Thank you.
I guess what I think I'm going to try to keep an eye on is our 0 to 11 age group. The rest of the children and parents, vaccination is a matter of choice, just like mask is a matter of choice. So I'm not concerned about that, but I am concerned about those children who cannot be vaccinated, even though they and their parent may want to be vaccinated. So until there's a vaccine available to them, I really want to keep an eye on that population. The good news is based on the data that we have, it shows that the severity doesn't seem to impact that age group as much as it does the older ones. If I look at the current data from New Hampshire, the age groups that are most affected currently are ages 20 through 50. And the ages that are most hospitalized are 50 through 70. So if I look at the 0 through 9 and the 10 through 19 age groups, we've only got statewide 13 children that are hospitalized, which is 0%. And it's also, that indicates to me that the severity based on the number of people who are hospitalized in the other age groups is not affecting that age group as much. So I do think that we need to pay attention to that age group because of the vaccine situation.
And we have to continue to look at the data for kids in that age group and check on hospitalizations. Because 13 still is more than I think what we have fall of last year. So or across the state for that age bracket in hospitals. It's tough. They started to not provide information on that for a while. Okay. Remote learning, that was a conversation. I think there are a lot of misconceptions out of there with kind of what we've budgeted, what our staff does, what we were able to do last year. What we were able to do last year was very unique. And it took a lot of data collecting early on, and people were very truthful about whether they were going to homeschool or whether they were going to go to a private school or whether they were going to come to school and all this. And so we were able to make sure that we had our small class sizes. We had to do a lot of juggling around. I'll explain that in the next slide. But we do there are families who are very concerned about the policy that we just had up there from a different perspective than what we've heard tonight, and have asked for different reasons for an online option. And so regardless of the reason for wanting an online option, we do have an online option for every learner in the state, kindergarten through 12. I will say it is not necessarily the best approach for everyone, because we believe that the best approach is that they be in person in school. But it does work for some, and the curriculum, I've known the CEO of VLAX for many years, put together a great program. It's a fast growing place. It did an incredible job last year, as this was the primary means for remote learning in many school districts last year. We chose to do our own, which we thought was a better option. We still think that was better. But this is a good one. You can take courses. They're fully, if it's middle school, high school, they're fully accredited. They come out. If you pass those courses, they transfer well into our school. They're a school in New Hampshire. Our credits would go there. They would come here. So you can, if that's an option for people that they want to do, you can homeschool, which would mean I'd take my learner out of school, send a letter in, say I'm going to homeschool for this year. I'm going to use this free curriculum. There are teachers that go along with every single class. There's pacing guides. You are on the phone with individuals. There's sometimes you're on the computer with them as well. There's a very structured curriculum process. I think it's probably a little bit different in elementary than it is at middle high, but I haven't seen that as much, but it is a process. You can also, people, if they're interested in doing that, and at some point in time say, this is really working for my child, as much as I would like to have every child here, sometimes this type of environment does work out better. It's why the charter school exists. And you can enroll full-time, and there is a graduation from this programming right here. It's completely competency-based, and they have a couple of different approaches to doing things. They do a very traditional approach, and they also, in some cases, have some ways of showing your understanding alternatively. Will the district be able to provide other virtual options? Our focus, our whole reopening plan was developed with a focus on in-person learning, as most school districts in the whole state were that way. I don't know too many districts that are offering an in-house remote option. It's a very expensive process, and it's that's one reason, but also it's very demanding on families and staff. Some families, of course, want it. That's why the question was asked. We do, as a school district, need to provide FAPE, which is a free appropriate public education for everyone. We want to be able to provide the best possible learning option that our budget can support. We've budgeted for in-person learning. We don't have additional teachers who are set aside for the possibility of this, not without potentially having to completely overturn, perhaps in this school, the entire schedule, which is what had to be done before in order to make everything work well. At the elementary school, it wouldn't function properly. Actually, I had to hire another teacher that we were not budgeted this year, that I'll pay out of a grant once those funds come, for Rinch Memorial School, because the kindergarten is getting large. And so we weren't going to be able, well, it would have been difficult to have met the 3 feet of social distancing that was required by the policy. But also we have for years not allowed that many kids to be in a kindergarten class for a lot of reasons. So we'll have 4 kindergarten classes over at Ridge. So we did put extra money into that, even though it wasn't budgeted for. We'll find that through grant funds for the most part. If we were, I was trying to, like, you know, not a good solution. If we were to go and offer any sort of remote options, whether it be temporary or whether it be for long term. I mean, temporary is tough because how do you hire someone not knowing when a situation is going to arise? You know, so you have to hire them for either a full year or a part of a year or whatever. Finding the number of teachers right now who could even be skilled enough to do this would be next to impossible, as there are we have still a couple openings ourselves as of late, but also most districts in the area have, you know, 5-10 openings of professional staff that they can't even find. They just don't exist. But if we were to be able to find individuals who could do that type of instruction, though not a great model, assuming that you wouldn't have, you know, say more than maybe a couple dozen in an elementary school, maybe a couple dozen in the other elementary school. Grade spans, of course, very different. You hired a couple teachers for the elementary alone just to handle any sort of remote options, and had them doing like 2 to 3 year grade spans. And then hiring a minimum of 4 for the middle school, high school because of subject matter and certification issues. I mean, first of all, that won't provide a good experience. It could provide a tutorial type of experience, perhaps, like if you have questions, I can get back to you type of situation at best. You know, that alone is, when you have salaries, benefits, and everything else, you're talking $450,000. You're talking about, you know, almost $500,000. It's just not a good use of funds, and it's not. It'll be using funds to not provide the right type of education for our learners, and it would be coming out of at the expense. Like if we were to try to figure out how to make our class sizes here in person larger in order to free up people, which that's another option that could be done in certain areas. You could literally increase your class sizes. Then by doing that, you're actually hindering the in-person learning process for the majority. And so our existing teachers have full teaching responsibilities right now. But again, there is an online option, and we've certainly helped people who have been in VLAX take that option. What we will do, however, is what we've been doing over the last couple of years. You know, teachers will maintain a Google Classroom. The elementary teachers know this. The secondary teachers do this. The learning, the assignments, online learning modules like Moby Max and Khan and things like that, those tools certainly will be linked, and people will have access to that. So the access to the assignments will be automatic to anyone who's out for a period of time. Individuals who have Google Classrooms, kids who are out, certainly in the secondary level, find ways to communicate with their teachers, email them. It can happen at the elementary level as well, but usually parents are involved a little bit more with the communication back and forth. But our teachers have been pretty good about getting back to individuals when needing help or clarifying questions. We have not really determined this number 2, which is why I bring it up here. We did do this last year. We talked about it favorably, but we haven't really adopted it. Going forward is that when inclement weather occurs or an emergency situation that requires a school to be shut down, someone, had some constructive feedback for us with the situation that we're currently in. Why aren't we going remote? Well, if this had happened maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks in the school, we might be prepared to have gone remote if we needed to, because the kids would have had all of their Chromebooks. We would have already had the curriculum all situated and everything would have been all set. Very tough to do right off the bat, because even the preparation for some of our teachers was greatly inhibited. But understanding, we all agree, I think the majority of us anyway agree that it's important for kids to have snow days when the snow is nice, when the weather is there, they can get outside. We want to promote outdoor education. By the way, we have the tents, we purchased those knowing that we were going to do that, and people are signing up over at Ringe Memorial School for the tents so that it'd be outside when it's good outside and nice outside. Same thing at JGS. We've got outdoor classrooms going on at JGS as well, and I know there's capacity for outdoor learning over at RMS. So this whole experience has done it has pushed us outside more, because we do not desire for kids to have masks on. That is not as our desire. I don't think any one of us, but we want to be able to provide them the right experience that's going to work for everyone. So, parental and family choice. There were a couple of scenarios provided. One of them we've talked about already tonight, which is if you choose to we can't make you test your child or get your child tested. If you go home, person has a scratchy throat, that seems to be one of the bigger symptoms for this variant right now. Fevers don't appear to be, just like they didn't prove to be the issue last time. But nonetheless, we got to pay attention to them. If people say, I'm not going to go get tested, understand that's your choice, and that choice to not do that, to find out, like, perhaps the learner doesn't have COVID, which last year most of our kids that we sent out did not have COVID, right? But we had to do what we needed to do. They at this point in time can come back very, very quickly and then not worry about what's happening outside, from not being in school. But if you choose to not get tested, that's fine. That's a choice. That's a family medical decision. But understand, the school does not have the capacity to go over and above what it's currently doing to provide individual tutoring or a quick online classroom, basically, for that situation. They'll have access to their work and they'll have communication ability. And the same thing if we were to get into a school situation where masks were mandated. I know people there are times where it was stated they would want to take their kids out for that 5-day period of time or 10-day period, whatever it ends up being, as a result of, to make sure that the percentages go in a different direction. Again, that's a parent choice. That's fine. But it's not, but it's a choice. It's a situation between the school district trying to figure out how to spend $75,000 or $150,000 or more dollars to handle a situation that, by the way, might not occur. It might occur, or to simply, for a 5-day period of time, put one of these on. I understand there's hesitation about that, but we can provide them if it's, and we give mask breaks. And there was never a child who wore one all day long, all the time. We get them outside, even in the winter. And so, we'll do our very best. They'll have access to the learning. They'll have digital learning modules that they'll be able to take and have instructed, but those are the options. So you have choice. VLAX is a full year type of online choice. The only other, if you have a situational choice, like what I have here up on the slide, that's something that we're not going to be able to provide a specific program for. And then through a lot of the communication that's come my way over the past couple of weeks, but you were able to do it last year, but you guys spent all that money to get more teachers last year. Don't you have ESSER funds? We just talked about it tonight, get more teachers and so forth. We didn't actually purchase any teachers last year out of our funds. We used all of the same number of teachers. Actually, this year we have more because because of that kindergarten situation. But same number of teachers. What we were able to do is we had fewer students. We changed the schedules up significantly to allow for more sections. So we have people teaching like 7 sections, of something instead of like 5 at the school. We were able to make it work. There was a solid month of just intense planning to make that happen. This is just not a year to do that. It would be harmful to the majority. We did hire some long-term subs because of staff illness. Not too many of them. Revamped the entire schedules, and we did use a grant for a float nurse. I'm excited that we did have on tonight on the agenda. We do have a nurse who is resigning, personal issues. We were able to hire another one, and it's the one that we had last year. So she's familiar with all the schools. So it was nice that we had that from last year. A lot of conversation about how do we use funds. And I can go a lot deeper than this at another time, but here are some major categories. First, it's important to note that not only did we receive the ESSER 1 fund, which was quite a bit less than ESSER 2 and 3, we then, our business office, along with my administrative assistant, Leslie, worked day after day, doing a lot of paperwork, jumping through hoops and getting everything just right to be able to acquire another $165,000 from the state that very few schools actually got. So we were able to access as much funding as we could. As a result, we were able to give more money back to the taxation that you've already heard, which is great. Because we do have to, be fiscally responsible and make sure that we're doing what's right for our communities. But we did a lot of what I would call technology and communications improvements. That could be hotspots, that could be, because wireless isn't great everywhere. There's some of the equipment right here so that we could televise what we're doing. Yep, cleaning. We used a lot of the $165,000 down below that is mentioned there for cleaning services. Other part, paying the rest of the nurse. We had some long-term substitutes in here, some remediation, some items that we had to do for wellness and cleaning. You're talking about PPE, buying the hand sanitizer, all that kind of stuff. And so out of that 225, 230,000, I think we have another 10,000 left in there right now, plus the 165,000, which we utilized completely. That was all for just protection of people's health wise and so forth. And in that money was the 70 some odd thousand that we used for the eye waves, for the ionization system that we have, which we'll talk again in a little while. Right here. So facilities, I follow social media fairly well. We've got a lot of, it's interesting to see the different avenues in the community and a lot of different opinions and so forth on this. We are using the ESSER funds, hopefully, that we talked about tonight, to redo the HVAC systems over at the elementary schools, so they have all new an all-new system, which should last a while, but also have dehumidification. Now, if we had the dehumidification work done, like we had originally planned to have done, we wouldn't have had any of the mold issues in class because the air systems that were on like 100% of the time wouldn't have pulled in the 80 to 90% humidity that we had during that time frame, which then saturated the carpets. Didn't happen. That shouldn't happen again, given once that work is done. Here, that is exactly what took place. And we have some work to do down the road to continue to improve our systems. The eye waves are for allergens, for specifically COVID, anything that's airborne like that. It certainly would lessen any impact that mold would have, but it wouldn't stop it from actually growing if it can't fight that much humidity. So the status update on the mold situation, which is really it was stated earlier that we didn't start school because of parking lots. That was not the reason why. Although, you know, we certainly could have had school today because there could have been parking up here this way or tomorrow. But the mold situation is that once you had it, and it grew in this building in particular pretty rapidly, it changes the air quality. And so you have to have anything that has a carpet has some level of mold in it. In your homes, it's going to be like that. You got to wash them, you got to vacuum and all that kind of stuff. It's been a very wet summer. So, and a lot of schools have dealt with this, that we are not the only ones. We might be in the paper, but we're not the only ones by any stretch of the imagination. Because try to find ask ServPro, can you come on over and help us? No, we're actually working with 3 colleges right now, another private school over on the other side of the state. We have to bring people in from New York to handle the amount of situations that existed. We were able to get all the process from ServPro as to how to go about doing it, how to make sure we had all the equipment anyway, what chemicals to use, everything that was like top notch. We went and purchased it, got it. We've done all the cleaning. The hygienist came in today. He said it looks great, but he has to do the air quality test. So tomorrow we'll find out how that is. And I would expect that we'll do very well. If there are a couple areas that we need to continue to work on, they'll give us some information and we'll work on those couple areas. We'll be ready for next week. The pipes, that conversation, that's another issue. You know, we had 2 times we had significant flooding and 2 times it did significant damage on the other side of the building. Part of it had to do with the amount of rain that we had, but also our pipes being clogged and not, filtering properly, and then water building up all in one spot, and it just blew up in the other side of the building. So we have been spending quite a bit of time trying to find out where everything's gone wrong. And we were able to fix one of the pipes. We thought we had that, and then we found out another area where 3 different pipes come together, and there's some problems with those that need to be fixed. And if they don't, flooding is going to happen again. Flooding happens again, we have to have some sort of process of either not having school, going remote, or some sort of situation that we have to work with. Parking lots are getting in better shape. You were able to drive up on them tonight. They're not done. They should be done and striped by the end of the day tomorrow. Long process for those. Lastly, tonight, and I know this is a lot of information, a lot going on in the emails and so forth coming our way. I'm just trying to give as much information as possible that has been asked of. Leslie's taken charge of Leslie's my administrative assistant. She has taken charge and really run, she and Adele, with the digital kind of onboarding of students this year and the registration process. So out of the 770 or so emails that were sent out to specific individuals who had different email addresses to register their kids, we have about 42 as of today, 43% of the individuals who have completely registered. And if you consider that school hasn't started, and even if school has started tomorrow, it's still, that's more kids than we've ever had registered prior to school. And usually we have all that paperwork, and it takes a long time for people to input that in, and sometimes do it improperly. So for our first round experience in this district, it's been very successful so far. Not without its problems, for certain.
All right. Thanks. Are there questions or comments for Ruben? John?
Well, Ruben, in your fourth slide, you talk about the new cases, but also the vaccination percentages.
Yeah.
And our vaccination rates in both Jaffrey and Ringe are very low. Do you have any sense of why that is? And is there anything that the school district can or should do to try to increase those rates?
So, first of all, why? It's because it's personal choice. The state's average for people who have been fully vaccinated or are on their second dose is about 60% now. That's where it's at. That means that some districts are higher, closer to 70, maybe even closing on 80%. And then some are on the other side of things. So yeah, our rates are lower than the majority of the area, not the lowest, from a standpoint of vaccination. There are a lot of people who don't believe in the vaccination. I think that it was stated earlier tonight that things are political. We certainly have been in the last several years, last 8 years, whatever, of sometimes there's information, there's misinformation, there might be correct information on a vaccine. Other people will get other information on that vaccine. It's up to the person to feel whether they're comfortable or doing it or not. So as certainly as a school district, we can't say get vaccinated. We can't say do that. We have a large portion of our staff that has been. We're well over the 90% mark. So we're in good shape that way from what the people, what we believe to be the right thing to do. And we will continue to offer opportunities. Any chance we get, we put the feelers out there from hospitals, any opportunity we can get to have a clinic here and to promote that, we'll give people the opportunity to do that. Last year we had a 12 on up clinic here. We had about 100 individuals. We had probably maybe, more than that, 150 or more who said they wanted to, but parents wanted to be there with their children when that happened. And so 100 was quite a few, and 100 out of, interesting enough, 100 out of the number of kids we had, was closing in on that 30%. So I don't know, certainly I'm going to continue to recommend masking, and the things that the CDC and that the American Center for Pediatrics and stuff like that, I have to trust that they have some knowledge on the matter. And so I will recommend those areas. In the end, I can't judge an individual for whatever reasons, for whether it be religious reasons or whether it be because of their, they've had bad situations take place, due to immunizations and things of that nature. It's an individual decision, and I can't force that upon them.
Other questions or comments for Ruben?
I have a question.
Mhm.
So you stated that you've heard from some parents, or maybe I misheard this, but that there might be some parents who are thinking that if we go to a mask mandate for 5 days or 10 days, that they'll just keep their kids home. Would those absentees count towards the 20% mark? I mean, would that be perpetuating that problem?
Absentee due to illness, we would need to know that they're ill.
So if they're
And
keeping
so if
their-
they're choosing to, they would need to say, we're keeping our kid home, our child home due to the mask mandate. We are not sick or something to that effect. Yeah. And it would not go against it.
How would that affect tardy and absentee for school year numbers for a particular student?
Well, because we have a pretty what has become a fairly robust truancy process that we developed last year due to so much shifting. So yeah, I mean, we have policies about when we send letters out and for what reason. It's not a, we wouldn't consider it an absence that we would approve. But there are a certain number of unapproved absences that the students would be able to have. Certainly, I mean, you go through, parents would receive letters indicating your child has been absent so many times. They'll be asking for meetings, things of that nature to try to rectify situations to help people where they're at. So you just handle that situation, you handle that process, and then however each situation, whatever the details or the facts of the situation occur, that kind of dictates where that process goes.
You mentioned access to Google Classroom for those kids who are sick.
Mhm.
So for those kids who do not come in because of mask, would they have access to Google Classroom as well?
Yes, actually, the elementary learners will all be one-to-one this year with Chromebooks, so they'll have those. They won't be necessarily taking them home all the time, like they will take them home here in the secondary, but they will have their own, the one assigned to them there. And so there will be times where if they're not there, a parent can come pick up that Chromebook. They can certainly, because it's Google, they can utilize any device that is going to have good internet access. Phone probably isn't the best device to use, but something with a bigger screen. Yep, iPad, tablet.
So can I, and to circle this,
Mhm.
in the case of Pure Red,
Pure Red, yep.
okay? You're requiring masks. And
Yep.
so we're kind of focused on people saying, well, I don't want a mask, so I don't want to come in. But the truth is that if we're in Pure Red, a lot of people are going to want to stay home. If you have more than 20% of a school out sick, there's a lot of parents who simply will not want to send their kids to school. I don't care about masks. That's still a risk. Masks
Sure.
don't protect you from everything.
Sure.
That's still a risk. Could we have, because this is an exceptional time, could we put in place, in the case of Pure Red, then take that tardy letter issue out of it and say, you can notify us if you're staying home because you're ill, notify us if you're staying home because we are insubstantial. And you're going to wait until we're back to moderate before sending your kid. Have access to the Google Classroom, but not be marked as, not have it taken off of your, or added to your extra absences, because you do have access to Google Classroom. There is some options. It seems if we're in that Pure Red, what we've chosen is a really exceptional situation. And yeah, we're saying mask, but the truth is if we're at that stage, there's a much bigger problem happening. And that does seem like an emergency time to me, that we should take away that fear of, oh my gosh, I've had 5 absences. Now this is going to start really counting against my kid, but especially if they have access to Google Classroom. You see what
I see what you're saying. I'm also thinking myself as a parent, and if I'm to the place where I feel that school's not a safe place for them and I'm pulling them out, I don't care about those absences, quite frankly. I mean, there's bigger issues at hand, and I don't care if they have 5 on there.
I would agree for elementary, but I'm not sure I would agree for high school kids going to college. For high school kids who all of this is marked, all of this, it has to do with ranking.
Competency-based.
But we're talking maybe a 10-day period. I'm not saying a 3-month. I'm saying
No,
we're
I
thinking.
understand that. And I'm saying that we're competency based. So if they demonstrate that they have the knowledge and skills that are necessary, that's what the colleges need.
No, not necessarily. I don't want to go into that, but no, when you have a class rank, and absences do play into where you land on that class rank, regardless of your grades. So that there is value in this.
Yeah, different schools do it in different ways. I think, yeah. So I think, the likelihood of kids and families getting into like a troublesome situation due to truancy, and this, it would be very, very slim. You know, so I think we want to keep our processes there. I think if we get to that point or near that point, we as a board have to have some other conversations. And so that might be part of it. It might be that we decide, you know what, we need to have a conversation about going remote for a period of time. I think that's highly possible in the state of New Hampshire. I don't think that would necessarily be, you know, very local. I think if that were to take place, it could happen again, and we'll be ready to go that avenue. We're going to have to just keep following the data, making those decisions. We'll make some adjustments as things go on. We want to keep everyone safe. That is the goal here. We understand, and we've listened to you know, everyone, all the constituents. Had some good conversations over the weekend with a bunch of educators from different places, some who are mask optional, some who are mask mandatory, and so forth. You know, it is a topic that has divided, and so our focus here, keeping kids in school.
All right, anyone else?
But I just think that our reopening framework is supposed to be very flexible. We revisit it practically every week.
Yep.
So as circumstances arise, and this is one of them, but I would assume that there's going to be many, many others, that we need to look at the circumstances, and we also need to, you know, apply common sense and do what the right thing is.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Very thorough. Superintendent report.
Well,
Okay,
lots of numbers.
yes. Okay, so we're up to the consent agenda. Need a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda.
Thank you, Patty.
I'll second Patty's motion.
Thank you, Alicia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Consent agenda passes 700. Okay, we're up to the policy approval. So we had a policy, this is a second reading about the tuition of non-resident students. Did anyone?
This may actually be an error on my part.
Okay. I was gonna say, I thought we had dealt with it.
Yeah, this is actually,
We did,
this
but
is the
we
incorrect
needed to make a
policy.
change. We needed to make a change, and then we did it out of the order that we normally do. And so we did it for the short period of time because it was time sensitive, but wanted to give people an opportunity to kind of reread and see if there was anything else as to whether it was necessary.
All right.
I
thank
will
you
say,
for
since
that.
this has been adopted, we have had the 3 or 4 that I have approved.
Wonderful.
Okay,
There was an additional policy, I believe. That may have been there or not. I don't know. That may have been, again, that'll be my error. I'll double check to make sure if there was a policy that we needed to bring
Okay.
to the next board meeting if we do.
all right.
Yeah, this one listed still doesn't say K to 12.
It's supposed to say K to 12, yep. It has been communicated out that it is K to 12.
K to 12.
Yeah.
Okay,
And it's been fixed on the website as K through 12.
okay,
So this was just put on an error on my part, so.
okay. All right. So board committee updates. I know that the finance committee met and we talked mostly about the public hearing and the pieces that were involved in that. So that was basically it for finance. We kind of did ours.
The wellness committee met. We can report that the National Walk to School Day will have this. Looks like it's going to happen again on October 6th. It's great to have a day associated with that, and all the schools will be participating. There was quite a bit of conversation about our wonderful trails program, and I guess some of the seniors will be taking a lead. Two of the seniors will be taking a lead on the QR code trails. And our construction trade learners will be building the posts that will actually have the QR codes. So it's, and one of the third grade classes at JGS is going to be writing some storybooks that will be embedded into the QR code. So this ends up being a project that is integrating many aspects of our school district, in addition to community relationship with the Jaffrey Conservation Committee.
Nice.
We are participating in a program called Got Lunch, which will help kids, I believe, have healthy snacks bagged up and available on some level after school. We're looking forward to, the Wellness Committee is looking forward to many more after-school activities at the grade school levels than we've had in a couple of years due to COVID.
All right, thank you very much.
That's a good move.
That is really cool. Can I just add that, that the trail, that is so cool that they're doing all that stuff. Damn. I would love to see when the trails are closer to being done or done, could we have a presentation on that? Can we have like a multimedia? I'd love to see what that looks like with the QR codes and hear from the people making it. I would love to have them recognized. That's such a cool thing.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
It's going to be renamed the Environmental Project.
The environmental project. Yeah, please invite them to come and speak with us and find a way to do that. That'd be so cool.
All right, are there other committees that have met since we last met?
The Building Improvements Committee met. It's Building Improvements Committee, not to be confused with the Facilities Committee, which is a committee of the board. This one is a committee with a board member on it, but also mostly a couple teachers, a couple administrators, and some community members. And just looking at specific areas that we've been of the buildings to see what we need to do to improve certain areas, the timing, when we should do it, how much should we be looking for in spending, and what's really our best strategy. And so this last time, it's been about 5 years since we've had a conversation about the 100 acres over on 202 that we still own. 5 years ago, we gave a report, said we'd like to sit on it. We had it all, estimated, evaluated, and so forth. And so that in 5 years, again, it would be a good time to do that. And so, we mentioned we had that there. We looked at some of the difficulties that we have experienced just fixing one or two items and how much that's cost the district and just the expenses. So there's, we had some conversation about, continued conversation about additions as to how to improve this specific area right here, maybe add on some areas for the arts that would be beneficial, maybe some STEM areas. And then when you start to add up all that money, it gets very expensive, and you're well within the millions during that time frame. So you're bonding and all that kind of stuff in concept. We did have a conversation about would the district, would the towns entertain a new school concept? Is that conversation something we should at least have? Maybe most people say no way, that's not good. Let's not do it. Let's figure out the best way to maintain what we have. That's fine. But we had a conversation about, is it a conversation we want to have as we go down the road? The immediate movement that we want to make is in the area of bathrooms. Regardless of what we want to do, whole facilities wise down the road, bathrooms need to be dealt with for several reasons. And so we have some sketches from the person we're doing, or the business that we're doing work with, the Turner Group, and they haven't gotten it to us yet, but they're to get us an estimate of how much it will cost to do all the bathrooms in the district. Also some They have to get us some new drawings on the high school second floor bathroom configuration, how that could look. We've had discussions as to many different ways of configuring bathrooms so that there's more privacy for all individuals. That's the goal. Obviously make them more sanitary, touchless systems and so forth that you'd want, more modern systems that way. But also making sure that, as an example, if you're going in a bathroom and, you know, the people can't book in, you know, so that type of thing. So like we have some issues in the middle school and, you know, some not great spaces in the high school. So just privacy for everybody is important.
Any other committees?
We had a facilities committee meeting, and I think everybody got an update on some of the things we've discussed, but I'm wondering, Ruben, if has there been any more movement with the contract with EEI? Where do we know where that stands?
Have we sent it back like the third time?
Yeah, it's that.
Is it all right if Carrie speaks?
Yeah.
Okay. Carrie's our business administrator. She knows the dollars.
Yeah.
We contact both times, it will come to, correct a few sections. Once they adjusted the areas we identified.
Is it looking pretty close at this point?
That's a little weaker for that. We will- I'm not sure if they're scheduled, and I know it was sent back to them, I want to say, last week sometime.
Would you say the issues are fairly minor, or there's some things that could be sticking points?
They should be. On their part.
Sometimes parts of the contract are referring to other parts of the contract that have nothing to do with what we're really talking about. And so there's some areas there, and we like nice, tightly written, well-written contracts that we can say, this is what we're expecting, this is what we need to do, and then hire someone who's going to help oversee the work that's happening for those specific projects, and they can stick to it.
Well, it will certainly be nice to have that at least wrapped up so we know
Yeah,
more or less how it's
Yeah, it'll
going to
be
go
good.
forward. When.
we're getting closer.
Yay. Okay, great. All right, so we're at public comments too. So same as before. So if there's anyone here who has a comment to make?
That's different. That's different.
Yes, a different comment than what's already been made.
All right, so seeing that we don't have anybody in public at this point in time, we do have one digital comment. So Megan?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Megan Caruana, and I'm a resident of Ringe, and I have a daughter in RMS. And my question to you today, or statement, I guess, is focused on the matrix. I had a similar question at the last meeting, and I just wanted to reiterate it again, because I do think it's important. I am happy to hear that the matrix is focused school to school, so that could be different at each school. I just want to make sure that that was clear in whatever's being sent out to everybody, because I didn't know that until I heard it today at this meeting. And then I just want to say, specific to this being the matrix being focused on general illness, since when has it been a standard for these extreme precautions to be taken for general illness? And all this is happening because of COVID, and it's just alarming to hear that this matrix is planned to be used in the future regardless. Why are illness numbers not focused, like or at least narrowed down to COVID symptoms? Are they narrowed down at all, or is it just general illness, especially? I think that's kind of vague, especially with the elementary school, with kids, having bugs all the time, and that being a normal part of building the immune system. And what are the parameters for getting tested? So is any illness is counted. So does that mean that any illness is also tested or requested to be tested? And that's it.
Okay, thank you. I mean, normally we don't have a conversation, but I think those are a couple easy things.
Oh, yeah, we can send it out, communication to everyone if you want, but basically, if you have your learner at home because you feel that they're ill that day and they stayed home a couple days, that's not something that we're saying that you need to get tested for. If the child needs to go to the nurse because they're having symptoms that are, COVID-like symptoms, then they're very much likely to ask you to go get tested. Yes.
Do you want me to show people where they can find the specific
Sure.
information about?
While I'm talking, you can just pop that right up there. That'll be great. I think where it was now.
About testing and if it's suspected to be COVID, then you may be asked to do a COVID test, but if it's something that's.
Oh,
a
but
regular
there are
illness, then-
situations also where, for instance, the nurses have documentation that individual students have allergies or they have some other chronic situation that goes on. They would take that into consideration. They did that more and more so as we went along last year. We had those conversations about that. Nick, can you explain that flow chart up there?
Yeah, so again, just to kind of follow the chain. So you go to our website, you click this red section up here. It'll eventually take you to a section that kind of gives you more information, on school closure updates and things and COVID and whatnot. Eventually, you're going to make it to important documents and links. You go to our framework. And then if you go to page, what would this be? 13, flowcharts and with interactive links can be found on pages 9 and 10. Since we're using DPH's guidance when it comes to things like testing, quarantine and whatnot, we linked directly to their documentation, which can be found on their website. But this is the school and childcare toolkit for from the state. And if you go to pages 9 and 10 of this document, they've created a student and staff screening algorithm. And if you look at any of these blue links, you can click to get more information about self-isolate, testing, symptoms. So this is kind of a good flow chart that you can follow and that the district will follow. And then additionally, what to do if a student becomes sick or reports COVID diagnosis at school. So these resources are attached to our framework. They are also on the website for people to view. And we, again, link to these state guide and documents so that we can keep the most current information because they update these as the year goes on. So if they do make changes to this, you'll be able to see it in this document.
Yeah, last year we had, I think, changed that process, 3 or 4 times because information kept on changing. So we figured it would be best to utilize this, and then if there's a change, we can let people know about it. The conversation around illness as opposed to COVID, I think that the conversation at the committee level was that clearly we're in another year with this, another variant. We could be in the situation next year, the same situation. It's possible that, without significantly higher vaccination rates, the likelihood of eradicating something of that nature is less likely. So conversations from some people in the medical field who have been working at this in the hospitals, the idea was let's put COVID in its place, of course, always looking at the data to see the strength of different strands and so forth. Like, that's always important to look at. and that it's an illness. So let's focus on illness, because illness is what is taking learners out of the school setting, since our focus was keeping kids in school in person and wanting them to be there. So, you know, for the sniffles and for a cold here and there, typically we find through the course of years, you're looking at, you know, we might have 5% absenteeism, 7% absenteeism. If you have a flu outbreak or something like that, which can cause a lot of problems, the flu can be pretty severe to anyone. And that's an illness. It's not a COVID related thing, but we've had situations in the past. It's actually been brought to our attention multiple times that we didn't do anything when we had that situation before, and it's happened in a couple different schools where we had up to like 30% of individuals who are out, not quite 30%. And so we took that feedback and said, okay, let's focus on illness. That is important. We should have reacted better a couple of years ago prior to COVID. And let's use a simple solution for helping kids stay in school was the idea.
Didn't they say, I mean, it's not uncommon for children to be tested for strep. You know what I mean? So testing does take place. It's not mandated, but
Yeah.
but it's the same concept.
Actually, a lot of people found out they had other things
Right,
last year through, it was, you know, which is good. It's good to know if you need to get on an antibiotic, if that's helpful. As for future years, I think that was the other piece of that. Yeah, I mean, the board has not adopted this for any time frame other than right now. And so anything that we do, whether it be in curriculum or we're doing something with this, with health or with safety or whatever, you always want to have systems that are transferable to other timeframes and other situations. So yeah, you know, maybe there will be a conversation down the road about, you know, did this work? Did this not work? Was this a good idea? Is this not a good idea? But there's been no decision to do that. It would not be in my authority to be able to do anything of that nature.
Okay, thank you. Are there any others?
Yeah, we have one more. Judy?
Judy Younger, Clark, Ringe. As the school year is approaching, what are your numbers for the families that have chosen to homeschool? What percentage of families are going to be homeschooling district-wide?
That's a difficult number to give you exactly, because you've had the individuals who are out homeschooling. If you're asking for the number of individuals who have withdrawn from school since the 2 weeks ago when this matrix was provided, we have not had that many withdraw. There have been some people who have called in and stated that they were going to think about coming back into school, but have chosen to stay out for another year, whether it be to homeschool or to go to a local private school. Those are some conversations that took place. Actually, our numbers at the middle school, high school have gone up, not just since last year, of course, because they were lower last year, but higher than they have been since I've been here. People moving in and so forth, but also people coming back from homeschool. Elementary wise, the numbers for in Jaffrey are consistent across the K to 5 spectrum, where they have about 16 kids per classroom, which is on average about where they were last year and the year before. Jaffrey stayed pretty stable. Ringe is higher than last year, but certainly, and this might go more toward your question, it certainly hasn't reached the level that it was 2 years ago. So there are still individuals who have not returned from there. That being said, we have a big increase in kindergarten. Enough of one where we were having 20 kids per class, and so we hired another teacher to make sure that those ratios were lower, since they were the highest in the school at the area that you should have, not the highest.
Thanks, Judy.
All right, that's everybody we had on the list.
Okay. Great, thanks. All right, anything for board matters or future items? Yes, go ahead.
Due to the fact that we're not going to be meeting again until September 20th, I would like to extend the superintendent's hiring privileges through September 17th due to the number of people that we still need to get in. It's a lot of people still.
Okay. So that's a motion.
I'm making a motion.
Lisa, would you be open to amending that to the 20th? A lot can happen over a week.
I would be open to that. It seems we're meeting on the 20th, so. But
Did you hear that, Charlie? Changing it to the 20th, okay.
yes, I'm open to that amendment.
Okay, so amending it to the 20th? Yep. Extending hiring privileges to the 20th. So I have a motion, a second? A second. I think I heard her first this time.
All right.
All right, thank you, Patty. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? 700. Get them hired. Okay. Anything under the future items that? Oh, hello. Sign, yes. Okay. Yep. Thanks. All right. Well, if there are some future items, get them to myself, Nick, or Ruben, and I'll take a motion for adjournment. Thank you, Charlie. Can I have a second? Lisa, thank you. All right, folks, we're adjourned.